Ubisoft is working on an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Remake. According to a new leak, we learned how much money the big Sony exclusives cost to make, got release date updates for big titles, and way more. It's July, thanks for joining the weekly news roundup videos. So let's start with a potential Red Dead Redemption re-release. Because we learned that the game got rated in Korea a few weeks ago, and it is a separate rating from the original PS3 and Xbox 360 release, so likely for a new version of the game, although the platforms were not noted. Like maybe they're finally planning on launching a PC version that never happened, although giving it the remaster treatment for PS5 and Xbox Series as well, I think makes more sense, as it's very hard to even play the game right now. Take-Two noted in May that they got 6 new iterations of previously released titles planned for the next 3 years, so this could totally be one of them. The Red Dead Redemption series now sold 75 million units, with Red Dead Redemption 2 being good for 53 million of those. Like, it's one of the best-selling games ever, which is kinda crazy, so it makes sense that they still want to do something with the franchise, especially now that Red Dead Online is kinda over and the lags are slowing down for Red Dead Redemption 2. Still weird that they did not bother with a PS5 and Xbox Series X version, at least. Now, these ratings in Korea usually lead to real games, like the Mass Effect Legendary Edition was also rated before it was even announced. And recently we got ratings for Lego 2K Goal, another Lego game from 2K that seems to be coming and was already leaked by VGC. And a Quake 2 Remastered also got rated, which could potentially be announced at QuakeCon on August 10th. Now, of course, the Red Dead Redemption rating could also turn into nothing, but I personally think that a remaster at the end of the year, especially because Take-Two doesn't seem to have any other big titles for that holiday period, makes a lot of sense. A remake would of course be even cooler, but we really haven't seen Take-Two do those yet, so I think a remaster is more likely. And of course, curiously, what you hope to see, let me know in the comments down below. A new Avatar The Last Airbender game has been announced, and it looks pretty bad. It's called Quest for Balance, and lets us play one of 9 different characters in solo or 2-player co-op. And I guess you solve puzzles and take out enemies or something. Like, the trailer does not make things clear at all. And I wanted to bring this up because it's just wild how they keep butchering this franchise. While I think if they give the series to a proper team, like a Ubisoft studio, like Disney is now doing with Star Wars, so we get Star Wars Outlaws, or an EA team like Respawn. If you give them the budget to make a Hogwarts Legacy style game, but in the Avatar The Last Airbender universe, I think it will be really huge. Like an open world game where we maybe follow a different avatar, learn all the 4 elements. But no, instead they're making these old school movie-like PS2 games. Like, look at these Ong animations with the fire. It's really such a waste. Maybe if the live action Netflix show takes off, they will do like a proper investment. But until then, we get this throwaway stuff. Okay, let's talk about that Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Remake leak. Of course, if you like the video so far, then leaving a like would really show your support. Thanks for that. And of course, subscribe, because I post a news roundup video like this every Sunday. Okay, so Kotaku reports that an Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag Remake is in the works by Ubisoft Singapore. That of course helped with the development mostly on the sea tag for that game. They also did a significant part of the Origins and Valhalla map, and most recently released the Siege of Paris DLC for Valhalla. Now, yes, it's kinda crazy to hear about a remake for this 2013 Assassin's Creed game that is still perfectly playable, while of course we also have the first Assassin's Creed game from 2007 that deserves a remake way more and is also like really hard to play on modern consoles. But the reason why they're likely going for Black Flag is because Ubisoft Singapore is of course also the lead team on Skull and Bones, and they can probably use some of the tech and assets that they built for Skull and Bones on this remake. So they get more out of the major investment that Skull and Bones probably will not recoup at all. The article notes that the remake is still in its earliest stages and will not be completed for at least a few years, and also how at this stage it's not yet clear how much of the underlying gameplay and systems will grow to fit the more sprawling open world RPG mold of the recent big budget Assassin's Creed releases like Odyssey and Valhalla. If I had to make a bet, I think they will make the combat more like the RPG games, similar to how Mirage, while going back to the roots, will still have the hitbox based sword fighting similar to Valhalla instead of the more counter-based gameplay. Apart from that though, I expect a rather faithful remake, maybe with some upgrades to the naval combat, as they of course enhanced those a lot for Skull and Bones, And I think we can already guess when this might release, because I don't think Ubisoft wants to launch this in the same year as another big Assassin's Creed title. So as a reminder, next year we get Assassin's Creed Red in Japan. The year after that, the multiplayer project Invictus is planned, with Hexe in 2026. So I think 2027 is probably the most likely window, which would give them a little less than 4 years, which is quite a lot for a remake, so totally enough time, I think, to do it right. It's crazy though, as I think a remake of like the first Assassin's Creed would have made a ton of sense last year when we did not have any new Assassin's Creed release, but when this Black Flag remake is coming out, we will really be swimming in the Assassin's Creed content with DLC for Hexe. Red will probably still be supported then, and next to the multiplayer game of course, and Jade if that mobile title is successful. A lot will change in the next few years, and I'm curious if there will be enough room for all these Assassin's Creed titles. But yeah, I do get why Ubisoft wants to get more out of the work they're doing on Skull and Bones. Like, not a lot of people will buy that game in its current state. The article now notes that the Singapore team is heads down mode, trying to polish the game before a closed beta planned for late August. How they're currently forcing all developers on the game to work from the office rather than remotely, and that they're providing on-site breakfast and dinner to encourage staff to stay later and work more hours to ship the closed beta on time for a game that was due out years ago. And that beta is, by the way, PC only, while the game of course also launches on PS5 and Xbox Series, so early 2024 now. Funny end to the article, by the way, some developers on Skull and Bones had previously discussed, at least privately, the possibility of pivoting the game back towards something more like Black Flag, potentially with a focus on co-op exploration and hand-to-hand combat, rather than just resource gathering and player versus player naval battles. It would have taken longer, but it's not clear if it would have taken any longer than Skull and Bones already has. Like, this would have made the whole Skull and Bones conversation completely different if people were actually looking forward to the game. It's just really poorly managed. Moving on to some quick shots, news stories that I want to go over quickly, starting with a very poorly redacted file from Sony during the Microsoft vs. the FTC lawsuit about the Activision Blizzard deal, of course. Like, you can read through the black ink that they used. So we learned that Horizon Forbidden West was in development for 5 years, starting in 2017, ending in 2022. And the development cost them $212 million with over 300 full-time employees, while The Last of Us Part 2 took 20 months more, starting in 2014, ending in 2020, with development cost around the $220 million, with around the 200 full-time employees. Damn, that's a ton of money, and this excludes marketing, so it can easily go up by another 100 million or something. Still, seems like these games were profitable, with Forbidden West selling 8.4 million units a year and 2 months after launch. Let's say they got like $50 per copy on average, so they made 420 million in revenue. Like, I think it's already profitable, and it will of course likely go on to sell more, especially with the PC release that will be coming later. Still, it does show you that if these big AAA games don't sell at least 10 million, they're not that profitable, which is kinda wild. And also probably why Sony is chasing more of the live service model, as they can get a ton of profit over time if one game is successful, instead of having to place a huge bet every time by launching a new product. Now, so far I'm not convinced though that they're going to nail their live service titles with things like Fair Games and Concord, but it's still early, so we will see. Over on the Xbox side, we learned that Perfect Dark, that was announced in 2020, is reportedly 2 to 3 years away still, and could also be released episodically, with Crystal Dynamics from the Tomb Raider series and Marvel's Avengers of course doing most of the work, while of course first it was supposed to be led by The Initiative, a brand new studio from Microsoft that they started to work on this game. So yes, a lot of mismanagement. It will be a while before we see it, sadly, but at least it seems like they finally found their groove. A game that is actually moving forward in release is Baldur's Gate 3, that was first planned for August 31st and now coming August 3rd to PC, so next month already, to get out of the way of Starfield, while the PS5 version is now delayed to September 6th, which is the same release date as Starfield. Like, sure, it's not on PS5, but I still think that version will be buried in terms of conversation. The game is 60 FPS though on PS5 and will probably come to Xbox a little later. I know Dennis is really hyped for this one as a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. It has turn-based combat, by the way, a big story focus with a ton of choices that impact everything around you. I'm not sure if I will play it, but I know some people are really hyped for it. Other release date updates, thanks to leaks, include for Star Wars Eclipse. Remember that game that was announced in 2021 at the Game Awards, developed by Quantic Dream? Seems like the internal date for it is 2026, with a Microsoft lawyer actually in court against the FTC, saying that Elder Scrolls 6 is also planned for 2026. While last week we discussed that Phil Spencer said it's 5+ years away, so seems like they want to get it out faster than that. And the voice actor on Silent Hill 2 Remake said that the game should be out early next year in a now deleted comment. Curious when we'll see more about the game, because I don't think it was at any of the summer showcases. This week you can expect more Final Fantasy 16 videos. Like, if you're playing, you probably made some progress already, right? So we can now focus on more later game icons that we don't want to spoil in any of the previous videos. So expect some fun and new content. The Mirage video is likely dropping this week too, and of course a Sunday video at the end of the week on Sunday, so subscribe to not miss it. A like on this video would of course be awesome, and check out last week's Sunday video with a ton of Starfield info, Spider-Man 2 details and more. I will speak to you soon, goodbye.